everyone, it is Wendy, but you can call me Ivy, and today we are going to talk all about crystals with a crystal expert. So let's go ahead and get started. This is actually a podcast interview that I had with a previous client of mine who actually graduated from my Hierophant mentorship program, and her name is Nori from Nori Heirlooms, and she basically runs a crystal shop, an online crystal shop, and I buy from her and I love her crystals, and she is definitely very well versed when it comes to crystals. So this is just some common questions as well as more complex questions that I asked her. So if you are new to crystals, this is definitely a video that you want to check out. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is actually an audio interview, and you can listen to the full version on my podcast, the Woo Woo Podcast, that I will link below. But I'm going to basically show you guys everything that I asked her, and then you are going to listen to her responses as well. So Nori, when someone is getting started with crystals, what do you think is a really good first starter crystal, and why?
Amethyst is a great beginner crystal because it's a really good entry point. It's really gonna give you like a gentle hand of where like, here's how you trust it. These are like some of the feelings you would experience when your intuition is heightened. And I think Amethyst does a really good job of helping you pay attention, not only to things around you, but like to how your body reacts to things, and listening to those motions, because I feel like when it comes to intuition and your craft, it's not loud. A lot of the experiences are very quiet, and it's going to require you to take special attention to those things until it becomes second nature to you. Onyx is if you haven't heard of this stone, it's another black protection stone. It's good for protection, and it also helps with intuition. So, as I was saying, it can be loud. Imagine Onyx is like, I'm going to protect you to make sure no one is going to, wish you ill as you're on this journey. But also, like, maybe give you a little megaphone. Put it into a speaker, if you will. Put your intuition into a speaker. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll pay attention to it more. And then once you remove it or get different crystals that do different things, you at least know what the baseline is. Then lastly is a clear quartz. Love a clear quartz because it's a great substitute for almost any crystal, which I feel like is super helpful as a beginner because there's just so many crystals and it's easy to feel like you need to buy everything. So I always like recommending clear quartz as a beginner because you could always substitute. So if you don't have like a rose quartz for love, you could always substitute a clear quartz and just put in those loving intentions into it. It will act as a rose quartz in its stead.
What are some ways that people can use crystals to make sure that they get their effect?
So there's like two modes you can use crystals, and I will explain it like this. You can use crystals actively or passively. And actively looks like meditation. So that's when you enter a quiet place, you're holding the crystals, and you're really just trying to have that energy exchange. It's giving you some of its energy and you replacing it back into the crystal or into the ground. So meditation's great for that. Crystal grids is another great way to actively use your crystals because you're using its properties to benefit your intentions and your goals. And talking to your crystals, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm not expecting a full conversation with a crystal, but it's think of it more as a prayer. So, like, as you're holding it, you're like, I hope today we have a good day and I find another lesson of self love, especially when you're holding like a rose quartz. Things like that. Making sure you're actively trying to use its properties, trying to get to know it in that sense. Or you can use them passively and by like just keeping it with you. Because even if you're like busy or you have a lot of things to do, a lot of people like to wear the crystals with like bracelets or jewelry. That's a passive way to work with them because they're still on you. You still are doing that energy exchange. It's just
Mhm.
not. very in your face. You're not talking to the crystal per se, but it being on you, you're already subconsciously having that exchange.
Okay.
And another passive way is you can always just admire the crystal. Maybe you're not ready to talk to the crystal quite yet. That's that's definitely, it's gonna sound foreign until you're used to it. But just admiring it, picking it up, looking at it, that's an energy exchange by itself. And you're subconsciously saying thank you, you're beautiful, and it's gonna say the same things back to you.
Define cleansing and charging a crystal. What's the difference, and what are some ways that people can do it?
So cleansing your crystal is like restoring its energy. The same way you can clean the surface of your phone, energetically, it's that same motion. So again, like I said, crystals are energy exchange. So especially like a clear quartz, it can cleanse and charge you. As it's cleansing you, it's actually replacing any negative vibes you had that day, that week, that month, and storing it within itself. So I would say, especially for clear quartz, I would cleanse that weekly just to give it a clean slate. Like a thank you for working so hard with me and getting these negative emotions off me. Let's clear you now so we can continue this energy exchange. Versus charging, that's literally bumping up its battery life per se, if we're still using the phone analogy. So when we're charging a crystal, we are replacing its power because again, it gets depleted the more often we use it, the more often we have that energy exchange. So I recommend doing that monthly. And an easy way to do that is with the full moon. That's a great marker. You can always have them bask in the moonlight every month, and they're good as new. They're just as charged as you first used them. And to cleanse your crystals, I forgot to say that. Smudging is my favorite way to cleanse crystals. That's just the method that works best for me. But again, pay attention to the herbs you're using. Sage is a tricky situation. Some people love using it, other people don't. I recommend the less you use it, the better, because especially why sage is endangered still, and it's still being taken out of forests where indigenous people are. So unless you're getting it from an indigenous tribe themselves, I don't recommend buying white sage. An easy substitute is cedar. Cedar's great. Rosemary's great. So is lavender, if I remember correctly. Those can work literally the same way as a sage. They work just as good. And I use cedar to smudge all my crystals. You can use water. Again, water can get tricky because some crystals can go in it. Some of it will be damaged in water for long periods of time. But the rule of thumb for water, give it a quick rinse. Like, those 10 seconds you do to wash your hands? Same thing with rocks. Give it a quick 10-second wash, wipe it clean, wipe it dry, I should say, and you're good to go. It doesn't need to be for a long time, especially if it can be damaged in the water. Okay, so the different ways of charging is moonlight's the easiest. You can always charge with selenite or blue kyanite. Those are crystals that they don't have an energy exchange. Their sole purpose is to cleanse and charge things around them. So they're always great to use. And that's a great passive one because I'm forgetful. As much as I like to say, oh yeah, full moon, I forget when the full moon is because my life just gets rumbled around.
Yeah.
But I always keep selenite in those spaces in case I'm like, oh, I forgot again. But the selenite is doing that round the clock because it doesn't take any energy. It's always cleansing, it's always charging. And you could also use salt. Now, I don't mean like sprinkling salt over the crystals like a seasoning. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But you can put them in like a salt bowl, or here, let me walk you through an example. So, what I do, I have tumbles in a glass jar
Mhm.
in a drawer. So, on the bottom of the drawer, I put salt. I
Okay.
put that way the tumbles are getting all that cleansing and charging benefits of that salt. However, they're not interacting with the salt directly. It keeps everything safe, but energetically, they're still having that exchange.
Okay.
That's typically how you would use a salt bath.
Does the size of a crystal matter? What about the shape and where we place them?
The size of the crystals do not matter. Each crystal has its own unique properties, and their own unique strength. So the strength is not equated with the size of the crystal. The size of the crystal is just dependent on how you want to use it. So going back to like passively and actively, passively, you would like to usually keep it small. You want to be able to put it in your pocket, put it in your purse, put it in your bra, or wear it as jewelry. They tend to be smaller. But the shapes of the crystals actually does have some influence of how that energy is going to get to you, or how the energy is going to spread in a space. Towers are kind of the easiest to understand because they're points.
Yeah.
So wherever it's pointing, that's where the energy is going to go first.
Oh.
They Yes. Then like double points are great for meditation, because since there's points on both ends, you can literally like visualize where the energy is going. Some of it's going to you, and some of it, any excess, usually is going away from you. Um,
Mm.
then spheres are very harmonious because again, it's a complete circle. It's very fluid when you meditate with it. So that one is very good for like grounding or even scrying. Um, because obsidian is really great for scrying.
Yeah.
What else? Raws. Raws, I highly recommend in big spaces because there's so many points on them. There's so many textures. They're going in so many directions. So their energy is very widespread. Raws minerals would go the furthest in an open space.
How can someone tell if they have a real or fake crystal in their possession?
Yeah. Oh, this gets really tricky. And that's when like research becomes a very big deal because unfortunately there's a lot in the market. It's not always as ethical as they should be. So the best way and probably the easiest way to check is look up the hardness scale of each crystal. So, and that's when we get really sciencey because sometimes metaphysically we kind of forget like crystals are rocks and there are studies of rocks. So that's when you kind of use those scientists, all their information to make sure things are real. I even do this for my own business. So the best way I check for the authenticity of each crystal is their hardness scale because no matter what happens, you can't fake that. So, for example, quartz is, I believe, I'm quoting me, it's an 8 on the hardness scale, meaning quartz, any quartz. So that's amethyst, clear quartz, chrysolite, citrine. So you want to get like, and there's even these hardness test kits on Amazon that you can purchase, and you can they'll have like a sample of glass, and you'll literally take that clear quartz point and see if you can scratch the glass. If it can, then it's genuine. If it doesn't scratch, or the glass can scratch it, then you know that crystal's not genuine. Um, and it lists all the crystals. The temperature of the crystal has often been referenced as a way to see if it's genuine or not. Typically, stones are colder, stones are heavier. However, if it's been sitting outside all day, it's not going to be cold. So, and depending on the size, it's not going to feel necessarily heavy. Um, but the tip I do say, if it's colder than glass, that's a good sign. That's You're getting towards the real side of crystals.
Anyways, you guys, that is all. That is not the full interview. I definitely asked her a lot more questions, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't too lengthy, especially how you're just listening to her and I'm just gonna put videos over it. But that is everything, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed it. If you guys want to listen to the full podcast version of this episode, you can do so at my podcast, the Woo Woo Podcast, which I will link below. Also, make sure to follow me on my social media pages, and I will link the Hero Fount program if you wanted to join it. The Hero Fount program is basically a program where you can grow your spiritual business, or even just your spiritual, if you wanted to be like a spiritual content creator or witchy content creator like me. We take you through the process of how you can do that. We swap ideas, and I teach you how to use everything from making thumbnails or posts on Canva and reels and everything like that. So if you guys wanted to join that that 6-week program, I will link it down below. If you wanted to do so. And then lastly, but certainly not least, I actually have a booktube channel too. So if you love books as much as I do, then you can check that out down below as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!